The stage was set for what promised to be another lively episode of The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson. The lights blazed over the sleek, modern studio, the audience buzzing with anticipation. The faint hum of cameras and the soft clatter of crew members adjusting equipment filled the air. It was a typical night in Los Angeles, with the crowd ready for Ferguson's signature blend of sharp wit and playful banter. But no one, not the audience, not the producers, not even Ferguson himself, could have predicted that this episode would become a moment etched into television history. Adam Sandler, the comedic powerhouse known for his goofy charm and heartfelt films, strode onto the stage with his trademark grin. Dressed in a casual hoodie and jeans, he waved to the cheering audience, his easygoing demeanor instantly winning them over. He was there to promote his latest project, a family-friendly comedy that had already generated buzz for its mix of humor and heart. The crowd roared as he took his seat, their applause drowning out the opening chords of the show's theme music. Ferguson, leaning back in his chair with a mischievous glint in his eye, waited for the noise to die down before launching into his introduction. "Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Adam Sandler," Ferguson announced, his Scottish accent cutting through the cheers. "From Happy Gilmore to Grown-Ups, this man has made us laugh for decades. But tonight, we're going to dig a little deeper. Welcome, Adam." Sandler nodded, chuckling. "Thanks, Craig. Good to be here, man. Love the vibe." He gestured to the audience, who responded with another wave of applause. The atmosphere was warm, almost celebratory, until it wasn't. Ferguson leaned forward, his smile sharpening. "So, Adam, this new movie of yours. It's got heart, it's got laughs, it's got, well, let's be honest, it's got you. But some folks out there are saying your films are just, silly fluff. Escapism for the masses. No depth. What do you say to that?" The question landed like a pin dropping in a silent room. The audience's laughter faded into an uneasy murmur. Sandler's smile faltered for a split second, but he recovered quickly, leaning back in his chair. "Well, Craig, I make movies to make people happy, you know? Life's tough. Sometimes you just need a laugh." Ferguson raised an eyebrow, his grin taking on a slightly mocking edge. Sure. But come on, Adam. You've been churning out these comedies for years, same formula, same goofy characters. Don't you ever feel like you're, selling out? Playing it safe instead of, say, tackling the big issues? Climate change, politics, the stuff that matters?" The air in the studio shifted. The audience, sensing the tension, grew quieter. A few people shifted in their seats, their phones already out, ready to capture whatever came next. Sandler tilted his head, his expression still friendly but with a hint of steel behind it. "Selling out? Nah, man. I tell stories that mean something to me. Family, friendship, finding joy in the little things. That's my lane. Not every movie's gotta save the world." Ferguson didn't back down. He leaned closer, his voice dripping with playful sarcasm. "Oh, come on now. You're telling me you don't feel a little guilty? Making millions while the world's burning? I mean, you're out here doing fart jokes while activists are out there fighting for change. Doesn't that ever keep you up at night?" The audience gasped, a collective intake of breath that seemed to suck the oxygen from the room. One of the show's co-producers, visible in the wings, froze, her clipboard clutched tightly to her chest. The other guest host, a comedian who had been chuckling along, suddenly looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. Sandler's jaw tightened, his fingers tapping lightly on the armrest, a subtle sign of the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. "Craig, I respect what you're trying to do here," Sandler said, his voice steady but laced with an edge. "You want a hot take, I get it. But I don't think making people laugh is a crime. I don't think bringing families together for a movie night is selling out. Maybe that's not your thing, but it's mine." Ferguson smirked, undeterred. Fair enough. But let's get real for a second. You've got this huge platform, Adam. Millions of fans. You could be out there making a difference using your voice. Instead, you're, playing a grown man in a diaper? Again? He paused for effect, letting the audience's nervous laughter ripple through the studio. I mean, come on, mate. Don't you ever think maybe I could do more? The studio was deathly quiet now, save for the faint hum of the cameras. A woman in the front row clutched her friend's arm, her eyes wide. Another audience member whispered, "Is this for real?" as they fumbled with their phone, already recording. The co-producer in the wings gestured frantically to the stage manager, who looked equally panicked. Sandler's easygoing smile was gone, replaced by a look of quiet intensity. He leaned forward, his voice low but clear, every word deliberate. "Craig, you're sitting there acting like you know me. Like you know what I care about. I've been doing this a long time, man. I've got kids, a family, people I love. I make movies for them, for people like them. You think that's easy? You think it's nothing? Try making something that makes a kid smile when their parents are fighting, or when they're scared, or when the world feels like it's falling apart. That's what I do. That's my fight. What's yours? Throwing cheap shots on TV for a laugh?" The audience erupted into a mix of gasps and scattered applause. Ferguson blinked, caught off guard for the first time. His smirk wavered, but he quickly recovered, leaning back with a forced chuckle. "Touché, Adam. Touché. But you've got to admit, it's a bit convenient, isn't it? Hiding behind family values while you rake in the cash?" Sandler's eyes narrowed, his voice dropping to a near growl. "Hiding? Man, you don't know the first thing about me." He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the polished floor. The audience gasped again, louder this time, as the cameras swiveled to follow him. The co-producer in the wings threw her hands up, mouthing something inaudible to the crew. The other guest host finally spoke up, stammering, "Hey, let's maybe take a breather, yeah?" But Sandler wasn't done. He turned to the audience, his voice steady but filled with conviction. "You know, I came here to talk about a movie. Something I poured my heart into. Something I thought might bring a little joy to people's lives. But instead, I'm getting grilled about how I'm not saving the world. Well, let me tell you something. Joy is worth something. Laughter is worth something. And if you don't get that, maybe you're the one missing the point." The studio was frozen, the silence so thick you could hear the faint buzz of the overhead lights. Then, slowly, a few audience members began to clap. The applause grew, tentative at first, then louder, until half the room was on their feet. Others sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to cheer or stay quiet. Ferguson, for once, seemed at a loss for words, his hands gripping the desk as he forced a tight smile. Sandler gave a small nod to the crowd, his expression a mix of defiance and vulnerability. Then, without another word, he turned and walked off the stage, his sneakers squeaking faintly against the floor. The cameras scrambled to follow him, capturing the stunned faces of the crew and the divided audience, some cheering, some whispering, all reaching for their phones to share the moment with the world. As the show cut to an abrupt commercial break, the co-producer could be seen rushing backstage, her headset nearly falling off. The stage manager threw his hands up in exasperation, while Ferguson sat back, staring at the empty chair where Sandler had been. The audience buzzed with excitement and disbelief, already posting clips online with captions like, "Adam Sandler shuts down Craig Ferguson," and, "This is why you don't mess with Sandler." What happened next would spark a firestorm of debate across social media, news outlets, and living rooms everywhere. Was Sandler right to walk off? Was Ferguson out of line? And what did this moment say about the power of laughter in a world that demands so much more? One thing was certain, this clash would go down in television history. To be continued. What do you think about this moment? Was Adam Sandler justified in his response, or did Craig Ferguson have a point? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and stay tuned for part 2 of this unforgettable showdown. The studio lights dimmed as the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson returned from its abrupt commercial break. The audience, still reeling from Adam Sandler's dramatic exit, sat in a state of electrified unease. Whispers rippled through the crowd, phones glowing as people furiously typed, tweeted, and recorded. The faint hum of the cameras seemed louder now, almost ominous, as the crew scrambled to regain control. The co-producer, Her face flushed with panic, hovered in the wings, gesturing wildly to the stage manager. The other guest host, comedian Lisa Kudrow, shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her forced smile betraying her unease. Craig Ferguson, ever the showman, leaned back in his chair, his smirk returning but tinged with something new, uncertainty. "Well, folks," Ferguson began, his Scottish accent cutting through the tension. "That was unexpected, wasn't it?" He chuckled, but the sound felt hollow, and the audience's response was a mix of nervous laughter and uneasy silence. "Adam Sandler, everybody! A man who knows how to make an exit. Let's give him a round of applause." He clapped, but only a few audience members joined in, their claps scattered and hesitant. Others exchanged glances, some shaking their heads, others nodding in quiet approval of Sandler's stand. Behind the scenes, chaos reigned. The control room buzzed with frantic voices over headsets. "Do we go to the next segment? Do we get him back?" one producer barked. Another, clutching a tablet with live social media feeds, muttered, "It's already trending. #SandlerWalks is blowing up." A junior crew member, barely visible in the shadows, whispered to a colleague, "I've never seen Craig look that rattled." On stage, Ferguson tried to pivot. "All right, let's keep this train moving. Lisa, you've got a new project coming up, don't you?" He turned to Kudrow, who blinked, clearly caught off guard. Yeah, Craig, but maybe we should address what just happened." Her voice was tentative, her eyes darting to the audience, who murmured in agreement. A woman in the second row leaned forward, her phone still recording, capturing every word. Ferguson's smile tightened. "Address it? Oh, come on, Lisa, it's just showbiz. Adam's a big boy, he'll be fine. Right, folks?" He gestured to the audience, but the response was lukewarm at best. A man in the back shouted, "That was harsh, Craig!" and a few others clapped in support. Ferguson's eyes flickered with something, annoyance perhaps, or a hint of regret, but he pressed on. "Look, I asked the tough questions. That's my job. If you can't handle a little heat, maybe you shouldn't be in the spotlight." The audience's mood shifted further. A low boo echoed from the upper seats, followed by another. Kudrow, visibly uncomfortable, tried to steer the conversation. "I think what Adam was saying, though, is that his work means something to people. Maybe we don't always see it, but—" Ferguson cut her off, his tone sharper now. "Oh, please, Lisa. Let's not get all sentimental. He makes movies about farting man-children. It's not exactly Shakespeare." The jab landed like a punch, and the audience gasped again. A young woman in the front row shook her head, muttering, "That's not fair." Another audience member posted a clip of the moment to X, captioning it, "Craig Ferguson just doubled down. Too far?" Backstage, Sandler hadn't gone far. He stood just beyond the curtain, his hands in his pockets, listening to Ferguson's words through a monitor. His jaw was tight, his eyes narrowed. A stagehand approached cautiously. "Mr. Sandler, do you want to come back out? Or we can get you a car." Sandler shook his head, his voice low. "I'm not done yet." The audience didn't know it, but the real climax was still to come. As Ferguson continued to deflect, leaning into his charm to salvage the moment, the curtain rustled. A hush fell over the studio as Sandler stepped back onto the stage, his expression unreadable. The crowd erupted into cheers, some standing, others gasping in disbelief. Ferguson froze mid-sentence, his smirk vanishing. Kudrow's eyes widened, and she mouthed, "Oh my God!" Sandler didn't sit. He stood at the edge of the stage, his hands still in his pockets, his gaze locked on Ferguson. The cameras zoomed in, capturing the intensity in his eyes, the slight tremble in his hands. The studio was so quiet you could hear the faint click of a crew member's pen dropping in the wings. "Craig," Sandler began, his voice calm but carrying a weight that silenced the room. "I walked off because I thought maybe you'd take a second to think about what you're doing here. But you didn't. You just kept going. So let me make this clear." He took a step forward, his sneakers squeaking faintly on the polished floor. You don't get to tell me what my work means. You don't get to tell the people who watch my movies, families, kids, regular folks trying to get through the day, that what they love is worthless. You want to talk about platforms? Fine. Mine's about making people feel good. What's yours about? Tearing people down for a cheap laugh? The audience erupted into applause, louder than before, some shouting, "Yes!" and "Tell him, Adam!" A man in the third row stood, clapping furiously, while a woman next to him wiped away a tear. Ferguson opened his mouth to respond, but Sandler held up a hand, stopping him cold. "I'm not here to change the world, Craig," Sandler continued, his voice steady but raw with emotion. "I'm not out there curing cancer or fixing the climate. But I'll tell you what I am doing. I'm making movies that let a dad and his kid laugh together. That let a mom forget her worries for an hour. That remind people life doesn't always have to be so damn heavy. And if you think that's nothing, if you think that's fluff, then maybe you're the one who's lost sight of what matters." The studio was electric now, the applause thunderous. Kudrow clapped softly, her eyes glistening. The co-producer in the wings stood frozen, her headset dangling from her hand. Even the camera operators, usually stoic, exchanged wide-eyed glances. Ferguson, for the first time, looked genuinely shaken. His hands gripped the desk, his knuckles white. Sandler turned to the audience, his voice softening. "You guys get it, right? You've got your struggles, your bills, your fights. Sometimes you just need a break. That's what I'm trying to give you. And I'm not gonna let anyone make me feel small for that." He pointed at Ferguson, his gaze unwavering. "Not even you." With that, Sandler gave a small nod to the crowd, who roared in response. He turned and walked off again, this time with a quiet dignity that left the studio in stunned silence. The cameras followed him until he disappeared behind the curtain. Ferguson sat motionless, his usual quick wit nowhere to be found. Kudrow, trying to break the tension, leaned forward. "Wow, that was something. Craig, maybe we should. Let's go to commercial." Ferguson interrupted, his voice flat. The screen cut to black, but the audience didn't move. Some were still clapping, others typing furiously on their phones, posting clips that would rack up millions of views within hours. #SandlerWalks trended worldwide, with X posts ranging from "Adam Sandler just owned Craig Ferguson" to "Ferguson went too far. Respect Sandler for standing up." In the aftermath, the internet exploded. Clips of Sandler's speech went viral, sparking debates about the value of comedy, the role of talk show hosts, and the line between critique and cruelty. Some praised Ferguson for asking tough questions, others called him a bully hiding behind humor. Sandler's fans rallied around him, flooding social media with stories of how his movies had brought them joy in dark times. One ex-user posted, "My dad and I bonded over Happy Gilmore when he was sick. Sandler's right, laughter matters." The episode changed the conversation. Ferguson issued a half-hearted apology on the next show, calling it a bit of fun that got out of hand. But the damage was done. Sandler's movie, meanwhile, saw a surge in ticket sales, with fans citing his speech as a reason to support him. The moment became a cultural touchstone, a reminder that even in a world of big issues, the small act of making someone smile has its own kind of power. What do you think? Was Sandler right to call out Ferguson's tactics, or did Ferguson have a point about using a platform for more? Should Sandler have stayed or walked away? Share your thoughts in the comments, and join the conversation about this unforgettable moment in television history.